I've beaten Fallout 3 as a baby. I've beaten Fallout New Vegas by only moving backwards. I've beaten Fallout 3 without taking any damage. But today, I take it up a notch. Can you beat Fallout 4 without a Pip-Boy? The first thing to think about is special. It takes time to level up and assign more points into special down the line to get access to certain perks. And this is where I first f***ed up. I assumed I'd be stuck with my fists as my only weapon, so I put 9 points into strength and agility and put the rest into endurance. The Great War began. I rushed to the vault, got frozen, then thawed out, then froze again, before waking up and beginning the adventure of a lifetime. I got the 10mm pistol, and it was automatically equipped, something I forgot about. Putting all those points into strength may have been a mistake. Oh well, I'm not going back. There it is, the vault door. You might be thinking that I'm going to use console commands to just remove the Pip-Boy after escaping the vault. I got 2 words for you. Fuck that. We don't need the Pip-Boy to escape. We just need our old friend Cone. Pick up an object, back yourself into a wall, look down, and start jumping. If you do it right, you'll start sliding up the wall. It took me about 30 minutes to do this. Eventually, you'll line up just right and will clip over the vault door. After that, you're home free. Fresh out of the vault, my first stop was at Sanctuary to use the Your Special book and talk to Codsworth. Before I left the vault, I noticed a few things. 1. You don't need a Pip-Boy to use stim packs or Radaway. They're set to specific keys. Bring up your Pip-Boy-less arm, press a button, and you're healed. 2. The 10mm pistol is automatically favorited, so you can swap between unarmed and the pistol on the fly. By now, I found Dogmeat, who will be my item mule for the foreseeable future, and moseyed my way to Concord, where the Minutemen were being picked off like fish in a barrel. I dealt with the raiders, picked up the fusion core, and went up to the roof. I used the power armor to pick up the minigun, then exited the power armor. With the minigun automatically equipped, I could use it to make quick work of the remaining raiders, as well as the Deathclaw. Dogmeat went and made a mess of himself, but he did recover. I spoke to Preston and made sure the Minutemen would be at Sanctuary Hills down the line. You might be wondering why the game looks a little barren. It's not a mod. The only mod I have increases the amount of blood. Several months ago, I was playing around with Fallout 4's .ini file. One of the things I did in that file was disable grass. So that's why it looks the way it does. Moving on, without a map, I made an educated guess as to where Diamond City was. I was actually looking for Park Street Station so I could rescue Nick Valentine. I'd have settled for either of them. Well, I took a wrong turn or something because I ended up in the glowing sea. Don't waste your time asking how the hell I got so far off track, because I have no idea. A not insignificant amount of time later, I was in the city proper. Not Diamond City, heavens no, that's still a ways off. I encountered Brother Simon, who led me into a trap. I wasn't about to hand over all my stuff, so I killed him and all of his followers, expending all of my ammo in the process. The good news is that, unlike Fallout New Vegas, you can bash people with your gun, which sometimes gives a really satisfying animation. Several raider deaths later, I found myself at Bunker Hill. Not exactly where I wanted to be, but I could buy some ammo and sell other weapons to get a few caps for the road. After consulting the map that came with my limited edition Fallout 4 guidebook, I figured out what direction to go and finally made it to Diamond City. Inside Diamond City, I sold more stuff, bought more ammo, swapped out Dogmeat for Piper, and started searching for Nick Valentine. It took quite a while, but we made it to Park Street Station. I upgraded my pistol along the way, increasing its damage a bit and giving it a scope. The triggermen in the station weren't particularly tough. Most of them could be taken out with 1 or 2 headshots. Many of them were using 10mm pistols as well, so I got quite a bit of ammo. I also picked up as many submachine guns as I could to sell them later. The next obstacle was the vault door. You need a Pip-Boy to open it, and I don't have a Pip-Boy. Turns out, that's a lie, because this is what happened. I assure you that I was as confused and surprised as you are. As I recovered from the mind-fucking I had just received, Piper and I cleared out the triggermen and rescued Nick Valentine. Skinny Malone and his gang were no more. I followed Nick back to Diamond City because I didn't want to get lost again, leveled up again, and answered his questions. After some convincing, I got Kellogg's house key from the mayor's assistant. Then I forgot the key and had to go back up to his office to get it. Once inside, Nick, Piper, and I did some snooping around his office and found the clues. The hunt is on. I somehow managed to lose dog meat several times while he tracked down Kellogg to Fort Hagen. Inside the fort, we cleared out the synths, picked up a bunch of junk, and confronted Kellogg. Fighting someone who's using a stealth boy is a real pain in the ass, so I vatzed his ass before he could say a word. I pickpocketed his brain, watched as the Brotherhood blimp arrived in the Commonwealth, and made a beeline straight for Good Neighbor. That was a waste of time because you need to speak to Nick Valentine again before you can enter Kellogg's brain. So I dragged myself to Diamond City, spoke to Nick, then returned to the memory den. Just to be clear, I'm leaving out a lot of small things. Telling you about the 15th time I fought raiders while going somewhere will get real boring real quick. I convinced Dr. Amari to send me into Kellogg's memories, skipped almost all of them, learned about Virgil out in the glowing sea, chucked up on Nick, and prepared to journey south. I bought a hazmat suit and then remembered that I couldn't even use it, but I kept it anyway. It looks cool. With a solid stockpile of stim packs and Radaway, I began traveling southwest. Surprisingly, the radiation wasn't that bad. There were a few spikes here and there, but it was about 1 rad per second for most of the way. I had also taken a perk that grants me plus 10 radiation resistance, which probably helped. As I neared Virgil's cave, I stopped inside Sentinel's site, which was boring and disappointing, almost as much as Fallout 76. I left Piper to deal with a Deathclaw and arrived at Virgil's cave. He explained that I would need to kill a courser before I could get into the Institute, which is exactly what I did, though I did spend far longer than I should have trying to throw a bowling ball into some pins. I geared up, entered Green Tech Genetics, and took the fight to the courser. I killed the synth girl he had because no loose ends. From there, it was back to Good Neighbor to sell everything I picked up and upgrade my pistol again. Then more science mumbo-jumbo from Dr. Amari. She pretty much told me that I needed to exterminate the railroad, and who am I to argue with a doctor? I figured out the railroad's password. Hint, it's not a reference to Thomas the Tank Engine like I first thought, and wasted little time inside. I fired randomly into the darkness, striking Desdemona with a bullet. Glory, Deacon, and the other railroad agents all fell before me. Before moving into Railroad HQ proper, I gave Piper some better, more fashionable armor. When all the screaming stopped, I was able to decode the courser chip, and I had to return to Virgil. Great, back through the glowing sea. The inability to fast travel was really starting to get annoying. But this is the only way to move the main quest line forward. So I did what had to be done, and lied to Virgil about getting his serum. I had no intentions of helping him in any way. From there, I returned to Sanctuary Hills. I read a guide which said that siding with the Minutemen is the fastest way to complete the game. In order to reach the endgame with them, you've got to enlist 8 different settlements to join the Minutemen. So that's what I did. Well, I started it anyway. I went to Ten Pines Bluffs and dealt with them. Unfortunately, they decided against joining the Minutemen. The rest of the settlements could wait. It was time to get building. I'd been hoarding junk in preparation for this quest. I had everything I'd need to build the signal interceptor. I built it, powered it up, stored what I could in the footlocker, gave my pistol a new name, and teleported into the Institute. With a network holotape ready to be returned to Sturgis, I could confront Father. I listened to him talk for a while before stealthily killing him. I couldn't return to the Institute again, so I decided to kill as many innocent people and synths in the Institute as I could. It went pretty well, until it didn't. I made my escape, and was greeted by, these fine gentlemen. Let me tell you, I was not at all prepared for this kind of a fight. Even with a perk that increased pistol damage and increased my damage resistance significantly while standing or sprinting, I was still in over my head. I landed headshot after headshot after headshot, went through nearly 70 stim packs, but they just kept coming. Eventually, after burning through all of my ammo, I made it into the last elevator. Guess what was waiting for me? With no ammo left, I tried as best I could to make it past them. All I had to do was sprint to the teleporter and I'd be home free. But there were just so many of them. I physically could not make it through them all. So I reloaded an old save, offed Father, and left. After returning to the sanctuary, I decided to help out a few settlements. As I swam through a river, I pulled up the perk chart to distribute a few perk points. Wait, did you see that? When I pull up my arm, I can change the hotkeys. Good lord. I can use the Pip-Boy even if it's not there. This changes everything. I made it to land, got a combat rifle from Piper, and, for the first time in almost 10 hours, equipped a weapon that was not a 10mm pistol. This is gonna sound melodramatic, but I can't describe how amazing it felt to be able to use other weapons. I went back to Sanctuary to upgrade my arsenal. A double-barrel shotgun, a combat rifle, and a hunting rifle were all spec'd out to the best of my ability. Also a missile launcher. I fumbled around with a non-existent Pip-Boy and was able to assign them all to my favorites menu bar thing. I felt like a god among insects. The next few hours were filled with a lot of walking to and from various locations, with firefights sprinkled in there. Even with all these new toys, I found myself still using Larry's Revenge for many of the encounters, probably because it was silenced and, with a sneak bonus, was capable of taking out raiders with 1 or 2 shots. After helping out 3 or 4 settlements, it was time to take back the castle. With my missile launcher and new array of weaponry, the Mirelurk Queen didn't stand a chance. Ignore the fact that it killed me a few times. Then, more settlements. It was kinda boring until I ran into a problem. Not a game problem, a system problem. I use an iMac to make these videos and OBS to record everything. Well, somehow an image from the OBS preview window got burned into the screen and started flickering. Going from Windows to Mac OS didn't fix it. Resetting the system management controller didn't fix it. Resetting PRAM didn't fix it. Luckily, after leaving it off and unplugged for 12 hours, the problem resolved itself. Back in the game, I was in the home stretch. I helped out the last few settlements, met up with Ronnie Shaw at the castle, set up the artillery, and prepared to defend the castle. This was a little rough, probably because I set up a bunch of turrets in a single spot. We lost many Minutemen. What's worse was that I went through so much ammo taking out all of those synths and coursers. When the fighting stopped, I finally got it. The nuclear option. The last quest in the main quest line. Sturgis explained the plan. What I heard was that I get to go play in the sewer system again. I began to walk to the CIT ruins, knowing that this was essentially a one-way trip. Because I wouldn't be playing after this quest is over, I ignored all the enemies and creatures along the way until I made it to the ruins and entered the pipe. With Larry's Revenge firmly in my grasp, Piper and I eliminated the few synths that stood in our way and entered the Institute. I loaded the holotape into the terminal and teleported my backup inside to fight by my side. And of course, when I talked to Preston about our game plan, another quest took precedence, and he thanked me for helping out a settlement. From there, we made the final push inside the Institute. Turrets, synths, and coursers all stood in our way, and one by one, they all fell before me. Not even the fake gorillas stood a chance. An upgraded 4-crank laser musket named Sandy was an effective killing machine. I passed by Father's corpse, which was still as fresh as the day I killed him, and did as I was instructed by Sturgis. A wave of synths coming from all directions put up a valiant fight, but it was not enough. We reached the reactor core. In my preparations, I dug out an old friend from Piper's ass, or wherever she puts things, and equipped it and fired away. I had saved every mini-nuke I found for this occasion. There were a few stragglers, but they didn't stop me from placing the charge on the reactor. Sturgis teleported us to a safe distance. I obliterated the Institute and beat Fallout 4 without a Pip-Boy. Holy hell, this took way longer than I was expecting, which is part of why I've been avoiding Fallout 4 for a while. The funny part is that there wasn't really any part of the game that was too challenging. With my agility so high, I was able to sprint past rad scorpions and deathclaws in the glowing sea. I could still use stimpaks, and my 10mm pistol was effective against all but the toughest of enemies, like super mutant butchers or deathclaws. Really, the challenge isn't even a challenge, it's an annoyance. The inability to fast travel was the thing that sucked. But even that wasn't hard, it was just monotonous. Kinda like my voice. And that, at long last, is going to do it for this video about whether or not you can beat Fallout 4 without a Pip-Boy. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. Leave a dislike if you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything. Follow me on Twitter at Mitten Squad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. Have a wonderful day.